Hey, hello everyone. Thank you for joining this session. Um, it will be a shorter session than our usual webinars that I usually conduct. We'll have around 30 minutes for the presentation, and then we'll have 10 minutes for questions and answers or for discussion. Now, the topic for today's session, it is that how we can increase our research productivity, right? Now, if you look at these numbers, so around 23% of the time of researchers, it goes into literature reviews. 40% of the time, it is consumed in unnecessary administrative tasks. Then, if we look at around 12 hours, that is the average time that it takes for a researcher to write a section of a research paper. And when we talk about from paper to submission, that takes around 4 to 6 months. There is a huge number of researchers who report burnout. They at times just get exhausted. Now, these are the numbers from a recent study, and what we can learn from these numbers is that um, there are certainly problems that researchers, and when I say researcher, that would be a PhD student, that would be a master's student, a postdoc, a professor, academic, whatever level you are in, right? There are certain issues. I myself doing PhD from 2016 to 2020, and then doing postdoc from 2020 to 2022. I faced all of these challenges, right? And even now, when I do research, there still isn't any perfection, or I could say that I have cracked everything and I know the bits and pieces. No, we still, until now, struggle. We find ways how we can do research that is more efficient, and at the same time that is of better value than the research that we have done, let's suppose in our PhDs or during our postdocs. So this is what we are going to talk about in today's session, that what is it that we can do as a researcher to increase our research productivity and to do better research but at a more higher speed. More specifically, we'll talk about these 4 points. The first point is that what affects our research productivity, right? In this one, I would frame it more towards master students, PG students, and postdocs. And then the second point, we'll talk about that what are the habits that can help us to be more productive as a researcher. The third one is that what are the common mistakes that we make as researchers, which hinders our progress. And the fourth one would be that what are the AI tools that we can use to help us being more productive as a researcher. Now, I'll divide this talk into two parts. The first one would be non-technical, and the second one would be technical. So in the first one, we'll talk about as a researcher, like how I can spend my day, that I can be more productive. What are the different issues that I come across and how I can solve those kind of issues as a researcher. The second one is more on the technical front, where I'll talk about some tools that can help us being more productive. Okay. Now, when we talk about challenges or what are the factors that impact our progress as a researcher, so for speaking for PhD students, for master students, or for postdocs, one of the challenge is supervisor relationship. So depending upon which country you are in, there might be different kind of arrangements, but generally, a PhD supervisor plays a very significant role in the way we do PhDs or the way we do research, right? If you end up having a good supervisor, or if you end up having the right relationship with your supervisor, it significantly makes your job easier as a researcher. If that doesn't happen, in that case, it becomes a struggle. The second point is about paper rejections. Now, I'm sure everybody here in the participants, you would have faced paper rejections at one point or another. I myself, at every stage of my journey, have faced rejections. Before I started my PhD, I had my papers rejected. During my PhD, my papers got rejected. During postdoc, papers got rejected. As an academic, also papers get rejected. Now, that doesn't mean that all my career is about paper rejections. Of course, there were papers accepted as well. But the point I'm trying to make is that it is part and parcel of research journey. Now, why am I emphasizing it so much? The problem is that a paper rejection, especially at the earlier stage during master's, PhD, and so on, a rejection is very difficult to digest, very difficult to understand, and very difficult to deal with. There are multiple reasons why rejections are hard, let's say during PhD. For example, you are running against time. You have to have certain papers accepted in order to graduate. You have a supervisor attached with you, and a paper rejection is a paper rejection for him or her as well. And at times, the supervisor might also not be okay with it that your paper is, like, for example, if it's a recurring process of rejection, right? So dealing with it is another challenge. Like, for instance, I have seen students when their papers get rejected for a week, they would not be able to even work or focus. So how do we deal with this problem? Right. The third and very common one is procrastination. So one thing which is very common is that during research, procrastination is so common. Even now, like for example, if I'm submitting paper to a conference and there is a deadline, uh, what researchers do is that they wait until the very end point, let's say like the last week, and then they would start working very seriously on the research paper. And it happens so much often for PhDs. So for PhDs, what happens is that there is no immediate examination like every 4 or 5 months. So PhD students think that there is a lot of time that I have, but actually there isn't that much time. So delaying things eventually becomes a problem. And then at the end, let's suppose you have left all your thesis to the last 4 or 5 months, then that is a challenge where you would not find your legs to walk. So that is something, again, that we will talk about today. That what is it that we can do about this? Lack of motivation. This is again a very serious challenge in the sense that in other degrees, let's suppose when you're doing a bachelor's degree, when you're doing a master's degree, what happens is that there is an exam and you get good marks and you feel rewarded, right? That's not the case in a PhD or in a postdoc. There is very little to celebrate. There is very little that can incentivize you or push you towards moving forward. So many students, they feel demotivated at times that, okay, let's not go to the lab today. Maybe I'll do it on the weekend and so on and so forth. Uh, what is it that we can do to keep ourselves motivated during PhDs? Financial hardship, this is another angle. Many students I have seen, especially when they have families, the scholarships that they get there, that is not enough. And at times, the scholarships are also time bound. You get it for, let's say, 3 years, and then you don't have it. So this is another challenge that students have to deal with. Work-life balance, that is the case for all researchers, that they find it very hard to keep a balance between how much time they should give to work and how much time they can give to themselves as a human being. You have to like give time to your family, you have to go to the gym, and so on and so forth. In my PhD, personally, to give you an example, I used to go to the research lab on weekends as well. Now, looking back and thinking, was it the right thing to do? It wasn't the right thing to do. And to be very honest, when I used to even go to the research, to my research lab on weekends, my productivity would be very little. I would either chat with other lab mates or and so on and so forth. So thinking back, I'm thinking it was much better not to even go to a research lab on weekend, and rather I should have enjoyed. Access to resources, that's another thing which impedes progress. For example, at times you don't have access to the right data. At times you don't have access to the right resources. For instance, people in IT, they might not have access to compute power. In that case, that also impedes the progress uh, as far as research is concerned. Now, I'm sure you all would have faced, uh, if not all, some of these challenges in your research journey that is impeding or affecting the progress, right? Now, the question is that what is it that we can do? What should we do? How can we solve? Is there a solution for all of these? No, there isn't. But there are certainly some ways that we can follow which would help us to solve some of these challenges. So, this is something that I personally believe can help when it comes to the supervisor supervisor relationship. So, it doesn't matter you're being master's, PhD, postdoc, there is something called manage up. Now, I personally have seen both sides of the coin. I have been a PhD student and I am supervising and have supervised PhD students. So, speaking or putting myself in the shoes of the supervisor, I can tell you that these are things that can help that you get the best out of your supervisor and you make more progress. So the first one is that when a student, for instance, comes to me and say to me that, oh, I have read, let's suppose, 10 papers, and there is nothing to show, right? That is where, as a supervisor, I would be turned off. Now, instead of telling me that I have read 10 papers, you can say that, okay, I have read 10 papers related to my topic. Here are four gaps that I have identified based on reading those 10 papers, or here are the data sets that I have identified, something which is tangible, something that you can show me in, like, sharing maybe a one pager. That would be far more effective than just telling me. The second thing, what I have also seen is that most of the students, they assume things about the supervisor, which the supervisor might not even have an idea about. So it's much better to clarify when you are leaving, for instance, a meeting with your supervisor. If you're not sure about things, just ask again and confirm. If you go to the meeting and you leave the meeting even more confused than when you're entering the meeting, that's a loss for both of the supervisor and the supervisor. You have taken supervisor's time and you left the meeting even more confused than you were before. Supervisors, I can tell you that this is what I also used to think, that why my supervisor is not replying to me immediately. The problem is that when you climb the ladder of academia, you become a professor, there are many things that your supervisor is dealing with. For instance, he has to bring funding, the supervisor has to deal with some administrative tasks, with teaching, with supervising other students, and so on. So expecting your supervisor to be immediately always available is not something that is realistic. But when you are, for example, there is a crunch time, you can always send a reminder and ask for, that, okay, there is something pending with you. Provide context. This is important. Sometimes, like, let's suppose my PhD supervisor, at a time when I was doing PhD, he was supervising 12 or 13 PhD students. So it is not possible to remember the project of every student. So always provide some context that last time we discussed this thing, and here is how we can take it forward from there. When corrected, do not repeat the mistake. This is again very important. Like, for example, if I correct my student a couple of times, that, for instance, let's suppose, do not cite any paper that is before 2010. And then again, I receive a draft and there is a paper that is before 2010, right? I correct it again, and then there is again the same mistake, then that would turn the supervisor off. So try to avoid that thing. The sixth point is very important. This is a confusion that many students has, that, for example, a supervisor is going to do the PhD for them. That doesn't happen. A PhD is all in all a PhD student's project. The supervisor is there only to guide you. So the moment you take it out from your head and you think that, okay, it's my project, I'm going to do it, that is when you will make actual progress. Seeking feedback on time, that's also very important. And then sharing meeting agenda in minutes, it keeps things on record and it really helps a lot. Not that, long stories, but to the point, a few points, bullets really helps. Number 9, what happens is that sometimes when the supervisor gives feedback to the student, the supervisor might criticize what you have done. Let's suppose you have written the discussion section of a research paper. The supervisor criticizes it is not good, there is no depth, there is no relationship with the research, and so on. Sometimes students take it very personally that the supervisor has criticized me. Actually, the supervisor does not criticize you. The supervisor has criticized the work you have done, and he or she has done it only to improve the work or to help you, to guide you. So the moment you understand it, it really helps, and you take your supervisor as a guide rather than someone who is impeding your progress. And lastly, personally, I believe that you should respect your supervisor, even if you have disagreements. It generally helps. Mm, okay. So there are a couple of messages, and that are saying that my voice quality is not quite good. Let me do one thing if that
I've
helps.
noticed that the voice is coming and going, the quality.
Yeah, okay, let me do one thing. Let me turn off the video and hopefully, I'm not sure if it's a connection weakness or whatever, but let's see if it helps. Can you hear me now? Like, I mean, my voice comes in clear or still the same problem?
Yes, yes, everything is clear.
Yes, can hear you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, now the second one which I mentioned was about the paper rejections. In paper rejections, what happens is that, as I mentioned, it happens to all of us. This is a general framework that help you to reduce the number of rejections that you receive. That when you are writing your paper, try to evaluate it yourself before you submit it somewhere. Like look for the significance that, is it significant what you have done or not? Is it new or not? Is it done the right way or not? This is something many people, they just take it very easy. Like, the methodology is not important. Trust me, when reviewing papers, we do look at whether the research is done in the right way or not. Verifiability, whether others can verify it or not. This is becomes even more important in the age of AI. That whether you have been, presented everything, every single little detail or not, that the other researchers can verify it. In presentation, how well have you presented it? This is very important. Communication in either form, it becomes important that it's clear and easily can come across. About the procrastination, there are certainly some things which I believe can help. The first one is that why do we procrastinate? So a lot of students, they are all about thinking, and then there is no action, right? Uh, the it, Thinking doesn't solve a problem as such. I mean, you have to think, but then more so you have to act, and that will make you that will help you to make some progress. No regular schedule. This is again something very common. I've seen students, they would like one day they would come at 8 a.m. to the lab, another day they would come at 12, another day they would come at 2. I personally, my suggestion is to have a regular schedule. Even if you work for 4 hours deep work, that is good enough. But as long as you do it on a regular basis, distractions, this is such a big problem, and diverts our focus, especially phone. My suggestion to you is that when you sit down for to do research, try to turn off your phone. It does, I mean, nothing happens. The world would be the same even when you finish your working session. So turn off your emails, your notifications, and that would help you to really focus. Sometimes people think it's too difficult, so they don't even take a start. It's usually difficult to take the first step. My suggestion is, be quick, take the first step, and the rest you will find out that it was not that difficult. Aiming for perfect, relying on others. This also happens. Like, we always, I've seen PhDs, they think, oh, I'll first take feedback. Oh, until my supervisor replies, I'll not move forward until this happens, and that way time goes on and nothing happens. Aiming for perfection, this is, something you must have heard on. I have been sitting on papers for very, very long, aiming that, okay, I'll improve this section, and that usually takes 3 4 months time. So whatever you have done, if it's in good shape, go ahead, submit it. I'll do it on the weekend. This is so common. I always used to do this thing that I'll go to the lab on the weekend, and eventually I could not do anything. So just take it out of your head that something will you will do on weekend. I don't know enough about it. Another problem which doesn't which stops you from taking the first step. And I don't have enough time. Reflecting back on my PhD, I think I could have done so many things, which at that time I didn't do, because certainly as you get more experience, your perspective change. This is what can help you to be more productive. The first one I already mentioned, have an effective relationship with your supervisor. It can, solve 50% problems of your PhD. The second one is persistence. Things doesn't happen in one day. Like for example, if you worked on hard on one day and then you don't work for the rest of the 4 days, that's not gonna work. Like have patience and be persistent. Avoiding distractions. This is what I mentioned already, that there are way too many. Sometimes as a student, when we used to go to we used to have a common room, and then you start chatting with someone in the university, and that takes hours. Treat PhD as your job. Uh, that would help you be more mature, have regular working hours, and regular writing. This is super important. Like in my case, uh, where I have done many things wrong. One thing I have done right is that I wrote papers throughout my PhD, and I published papers throughout my PhD. I'm sure many have done others as well the same way. So do not leave writing to the very end, that I'll do it in the last 6 months of my PhD. Keep on, as you're doing research, keep on writing, keep on publishing papers. At the end, you would have a lot of material that can become part of your thesis. Seeking help, uh, depending upon which country you are in, a university always have the support for doctoral students and for master students, where from they can seek help when they are really struggling. Realistic expectations. This is important for the reason that sometimes people, when they start doing research, they think that they will change the world. Now, nothing of this quality often happens. So it's good to have realistic expectations, do the expected or the required research. And of course, I mean, I'm not saying that don't aim for do good research, but don't aim for something that is too unrealistic and you get stuck. This is something which, I mean, part of these I mentioned already, but in my understanding, execution is everything. Unless you're doing things, nothing, is gonna move forward. Fear. Another thing I've seen many students, they fear a lot that okay, whether I'll finish PhD on time or not, whether my paper will get published or not, and that to a larger extent put a lot of worries in one's head and impacts the progress. Hard work. I must say that if you can be smart, but if you're not putting in the hours, it's very unlikely that you would succeed. So there is no alternative to hard work. Going the extra mile, this is one of my favorite thing, that whenever, for instance, myself or the research students that work with me, I always encourage and do that. What more we can do? Is there some other, way or another, something more that we can do than others? This always helps. Uh, the fifth one, I really liked it, that if you keep on doing the same, you'll keep on getting the same. Nothing changes unless your input changes. Um, Everything is difficult before you do it. This is one of my, not my professor, but a professor in my university used to say that, and I really liked it, that everything is difficult, but when you start, you realize it's not that much difficult. Um, the eighth one, company makes or breaks you. Sometimes students, they engage with other students like PhDs or postdocs, where they talk all about bad things, that okay, you are not going to finish your PhD on time, your research is not going anywhere, and all that negative stuff. Try to avoid that thing. And then ninth one, which is a very serious problem with doctoral students, is that being worried, it doesn't solve any problem. People, I've seen PhD students, they worry a lot, while all that space in your head, it could have gone into taking actions, doing research, but it all goes into worries. And the best time to start is now. When we say we'll do it tomorrow, that means we really don't want to do it. This one about the management for your research. So you can have a board where you can track your progress. This really helps to see that, for example, how you're going and what you have, let's suppose, done in this full week. Time blocking, this really helps when you have, like, for example, let's say, okay, these 2 hours or these 90 minutes, I'm not going to do anything else. This, turn off every notification and you sit and you just write or do something that is more deeper. The 2 minute rule, you must have heard of it. This also can help you be more productive, which says that if something takes 2 minutes to be done, just do it. Take it off your table. Weekly review, as I mentioned, that every week, go back, assess that what are the right things you have done, what are the wrong things where you have wasted time, and how you can save that time in future. Single tasking is much better than multitasking. We think that we are superhuman beings, but actually we are not. We can be more productive when we're working on a single thing at a time. This is again a comparison of, like, where your time should mostly go in, or your hours, which are what we call golden hours, should go in. So it should go in, like, for example, in writing a manuscript, analyzing data, reading key papers deeply, responding to the viewers comment. That is where your quality time should go in. Like, for example, when you are more energetic. When you're not energetic, that time should go into things like, for example, formatting references, perfecting a figure, reading every paper, checking emails, and so on and so forth. These points I already discussed them, that waiting for the perfect time to write is a big mistake. Try to avoid it. Write as you are going forward in your research. Reading without a system, I have seen students who collect, like, 200 papers and doesn't even read one of them deeply. This doesn't help. You can read like 10 papers, but as long as you read them in depth and those papers are directly relevant to the research you're doing. Over relying on AI without verification, this is something that you should be concerned about these days when you're using AI. Context switching, not disclosing use of AI. This is again something serious these days. When you submit paper, they usually ask you to disclose the use of AI. Comparing yourself to others, a big mistake. Big mistake. Everybody has a different journey. When you look at, for example, that the other students in your lab, they are publishing papers, you are not, it will always put you in more it will give you anxiety. This is wrong. They have their own research topic, you have your own. They have their own personal circumstances, you have your own. So there's no point in comparing yourself to them. Now, coming to the second part of this session. So the first one, due to time limitation, I went very quickly. I hope you have grasped some of the points. The second, about the technical angle, that when you're doing actually research, what is it that you can do which can help you be more productive? So the simple solution to that is that you can use the right set of tools and use them in the right, responsible, and ethical manner. Right? For example, if you want to do literature search, this tool called ResearchCollab, it can help you. For paper summarization, like SciSpace, Claude, it can help you. For note taking, writing, and editing, and so many. There are so many tools that can help you in your research. And if you're someone who, like, for example, see my content online, I often share about that, the tools that you can use in your research. Now, for today, we can have a look at some demos from this tool called ResearchCollab, and we can see that how it can help you being more productive. So the first one is about literature review. If you are someone who is at the stage of doing literature reviews, this tool can help you in many ways. For example, it can help you to identify the right set of papers. If you already have some papers, it can help you to identify more papers like that. It can also give you a quick literature review on a specific topic. Let's see how it works. So it has identified papers. If you think a paper is relevant, you can add it to your library. You can view papers. Then this is the a review of the topic that you have given it. This one is important. It can also evaluate papers, that, for example, how good or bad that paper is. This one, if you are someone looking for a gap in the literature and try to fill it through your PhD, master's, or doctoral, postdoctoral research, it can also help you in a very visually appealing way as to how you can identify gaps in a specific research field. So you go to Topic Explorer, you go to Creative Tool, and you insert the topic, like for instance, deep learning for healthcare. And it can give you all these different ideas which you can explore, and that has not been explored by previous researchers. So let's say this is a topic that you have picked, and you can go further as to look at the bits and pieces of that particular topic, as into whether it's worth exploring or doing this research or not. In this one, like let's suppose you are doing a literature review and you have identified a few papers, 5, 6 papers that you think that they are directly relevant to your literature review, and you want to identify more papers like those papers. In that case, you can find related papers through ResearchCollab as well. So you go to related papers, then you put the UI of a paper that you already know is relevant. And you can see a very interesting citation map of all the papers related to this particular paper. You can filter it by keywords. You can also filter it by like publication year. In the nutshell, there are many ways that you can explore papers around a specific paper that you already know is relevant. Then you can have a topic map where you can see that how topics intersect with each other, and like for example, how many papers are there, let's suppose, about this topic or this topic or this topic, and so on and so forth. The evaluation, I already mentioned that. Let's suppose you have a paper and you want to see that how good or bad that paper is. In that case, you can ask ResearchCollab to evaluate the paper, and it can show you, like for example, that the evaluation of the paper and a confidence score. Other than these few I have shown you, there are many other useful features that are offered by ResearchCollab. So for instance, topic mapping, searching papers, related papers, brainstorming an idea, identifying research trends, doing literature reviews, topic insights. You can take notes and bookmark papers. You can generate an outline for your research paper, and you can also do peer review of your research papers to get some feedback on, let's suppose, a manuscript that you are about to submit. To end the session, there are a few things that we can take away from this one. And the first one that I would strongly suggest you is that audit your days and look back and see that where your time goes wasted. Okay, once you identify it, only then you would be able to try to save that time in your day. The second point is that what I've seen is that don't just work hard, also work smart. Nowadays, especially in the age of AI, there are many useful ways to be more productive. Like for instance, when I was doing my first systematic literature review, it took me a week to identify the papers for my systematic literature review. Now, the same thing you can do in maybe in 1 or 2 hours with the help of AI tools. The third one, which I already mentioned, is that motivation is very hard. So how you can keep yourself motivated? You can keep yourself motivated by celebrating small wins. Like for instance, you have got some good results from your experiment, be happy about it. You have a good presentation, be happy about it, right? That is how you will be more encouraged and motivated to keep on going. track your research progress. This is what I already mentioned, that see that, for example, how your week went by. Number fifth point is that don't wait for perfection. Consider speed as a measure of progress too. As I mentioned, that I've been sitting on papers for months and months aiming for perfection. It didn't happen. It just wasted my time. The sixth one is to keep yourself updated about the responsible use of AI tools. When I say using AI tools, I also at the same time am saying responsible use. This is very important. Otherwise, it can put you in a lot of trouble as well if you are using it in a wrong way. And lastly, do use AI tools, but as I mentioned, use it in a responsible and ethical manner. That is it. Thank you for listening. And now, if you have any questions or any suggestions, any points, please feel free to share with us.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, sure. Please go ahead.
Okay. Just I am finishing my PhD. Now I am in mobility period.
Okay.
Okay. So like I am making comparison of different type of material and I am working on single phase electrical transformer. So like as you told that don't wait for perfection. So I am going sure perfection never comes. This point I get here in PhD. That is all right. But I have already just you told that write up a paper, so I already work on a paper, but they are not as you told that don't wait for perfection. So I am stuck now. I will move on with a high speed due to your suggestion. So like how can I proceed? And I want to conclude my point. So your response will be appreciated.
Thank you, Ziaul Islam, for your question. So what I got from your question is that you have the material and you are writing for paper, you're writing papers, but you've been aiming for perfection, and that was taking time. And what you got from this presentation is that you should move or speed up. My suggestion to you is that, like in this particular case, I'm not sure what was what exactly is the challenge. If you have written papers or if you're writing papers, my suggestion to you would be that share the paper with your supervisor. If you have someone in your lab who is senior, let's suppose a postdoc, seek feedback from the postdocs, and then move on, submit the papers. What is the worst that will happen is that the paper will get rejected, right? This There is no guarantee that even if you write a very perfect paper, it might also get rejected. But certainly you get feedback from the reviewers, and usually the feedback is very good. So after you get feedback, go ahead and address the comments given by the reviewers. The only point I can suggest you is that be quick. Like, don't waste time that making things perfect again and again. If you have written papers or if you are about to complete your research papers, seek feedback quickly, address it if possible, go ahead and submit it.
Okay. And the other thing is that I have learned from you a lot of things from LinkedIn, because my earlier PhD when I have not started, so every year your posts are coming and you are very active. And these some years I already very like motivation, inspiration. I got very inspiration from your post. Even I save with myself and I am going with that. So today we will meet. That's is a very great meeting, and your teaching it's also a very inspiration for us. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Ziaul Islam. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that you find my content or my webinar useful. Uh, if anybody else has questions, like you want to share, uh, as in like you can speak and share, that's also fine. I can also go through the questions that you have put in. Okay, so Sahar has a question that if we don't read papers by ourselves and use AI, then we might miss important info or not building up knowledge that happens through learning and spending time. Also, is it ethical or not to use AI tools like Gatsby AI for? Okay, so your question has two parts. The first one is about reading papers. Certainly, I would not encourage anybody that you don't read papers and like for example doing research. Of course, reading papers is a very important part of research. Like I myself, when I used to commute from university, from my home to university during my PhD in the train, I used to read papers. Coming back, also I used to read papers. I used to love like making notes on the hard copy of paper. Uh, there is certainly no replacement for that. If you are asking AI to read papers for you, then essentially you're not learning anything. The second part, that using Gatsby for AI for systematic review. Now, if you're doing systematic review for, let's suppose, understanding a field of study, it's fine to use Gatsby. But if your objective is that you go and you publish a systematic literature review, then obviously Gatsby is not a solution, because Gatsby, it gives you like a complete research paper. So submitting it anywhere would be unethical. So then we have a question from for an undergraduate thesis. Do you have any suggestions? Well, it's a very generic question. Undergraduate thesis, it's certainly very shallow in terms of like the kind of research we present in it. Usually the expectations are very low. But certainly I have seen, and I have even myself as well worked with undergraduate students, and the thesis that they have done, or the project reports that they have written, they have been converted into research papers later on. So my suggestion to you would be that maybe have a discussion with your supervisor, and the supervisor can guide you in a much better way. Uh, and certainly, if you have more concrete question, I would be happy to answer those questions. Then we have, so another question from Sahar is that how can we justify use of AI if we want to do systematic review using Providence? So as I mentioned, that there are now templates. I mean, we can do another session on the ethical use of AI tools, but there are templates through which you can declare the use of AI tools, that how exactly you have used AI tools. For instance, you can say that I have used what is the name, Covidence, for identifying research papers for a systematic literature review. So the more specific you are, the more easier it is for the editor of the journal to see that whether you have crossed any ethical lines or not. We have a question and then the question says that how to smoothly run the publication and run the thesis in PhD by publication. I didn't get the first part, that what exactly is meant by running the publication, thesis in PhD by publication. So I mean, the second part, if you're doing thesis by publication, I've seen that in that regard, essentially you have to have all your papers published. You just combine them, write the first chapter, like the introduction chapter and the conclusion chapter, and that way you have your thesis. I myself did the same thing. I didn't call my thesis like thesis by publication, but I had all the chapters that I had in my thesis, those have been already published. We have a question from Vakas. And we do a session for finding PhD scholarships. Is there any difference in PhD degree we're doing from low tier or high tier university? Of course, I mean, if you do PhD from a good university, you would most likely work with a good supervisor, and you would end up doing good quality research, publish good quality papers. So in case you have a choice to go to, like, for example, a low ranking university or a high ranking university, it's always good to go to the high ranking university. Then we have a question from Akhil. The question is, which is best software to check whether cited reference matches with the content of paper to cross check? For this one, I think you can use this one. This one I really liked. It's called Liner. Very good to check the citations quality to see whether the citations are related to the content or not. Then we have a question. Please share strategy about literature survey. So this is another webinar that we would be doing in a couple of weeks about literature reviews. And I believe that over there, this question about the literatures would be answered. I think those were all the questions that I could see here. And certainly if somebody has more questions, You can always reach out to me via email, or you can reach out via LinkedIn or Twitter, and I would be happy to answer, to have a chat. I thank you all for joining this session, and hopefully see you in future webinars. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.